All right. Is everybody ready to roll?
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Just so y'all know, I was just telling Courtney, if anybody types anything in the chat that's directed at me, I cannot see it because something's going on with my cursor. But let me see. Courtney just asked me a question. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, that's okay. I just wanted, yeah, so Courtney's just gonna send me things if they pop up, and I'm gonna look for that, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So good evening, everybody. I am Dr. Amanda McDougald Scott, and I'm so very excited that everybody is here tonight. Just want to go start out with our big mission here, and that is that the time to listen to child care professionals was over 5 decades ago. So we're starting a new precedence now, and we're going to listen starting now. So thank you so much for everybody who has signed up to spend your time with us tonight. This is a super, super important topic, not just for me and not just for the participants and the panelists here, but for our entire society. So it's really great that you have prioritized this in your schedule, and I can't wait for you to learn from these amazing panelists. You know, I've been working with these panelists for about a year, the ones that you'll be hearing from tonight, and it's just been such an honor and pleasure to learn from them. And I just can't wait for you to hear from them about their everyday lives working with children and families in their roles as childcare professionals. So first, before we really get started, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors and supporters. So first, I want to start with all the childcare professionals, whether you're here tonight on this call or you participated but weren't able to make it, or the wonderful reviewers of the data who made sure that you know, everything that I was getting from y'all's interviews was on target and that I wasn't missing anything. Everybody who's jumped in. And I definitely want to thank WREN, the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network. They have invested, supported, promoted, and uplifted experts like you on childcare and other topics. And they are really working to make a difference in the lives of women, children, and families in South Carolina and beyond. You know, that WREN is really leading the way in a lot of really important areas. And I think it's such a wonderful thing that we have them here. Doris and Scott McClellan and another private supporter were also investors to make this happen tonight. And I couldn't go without thanking my dissertation committee, as listed here as the doctors from Clemson University, and also my family and friends who listen to me talk about this a lot. So the agreed upon format for this is that, you know, the panelists and I talked about the format, and we agreed that what I was going to do is go ahead and just dive into an intro and just give a brief overview of projects and the findings. And then we are going to dive into recommendations featuring the panelists primarily. Those recommendations are based upon the findings that I'll be sharing with you from their interviews, the panelists who are here now, as well as other participants. And then after we get through all the recommendations, we will have time for questions. But anybody who wants to comment or ask a question in the chat in the meantime, please feel free to do so. So let's get started. I'm excited for you to meet our childcare professionals. So let's just go ahead and get started with Lynn.
Okay, I'm Lynn Pollard. I teach K4. I'm a K4 lead teacher in a private preschool, and I have been a lead teacher for 27 years.
Great, thank you, Lynn. Okay, Alison.
I'm Alison Lister. I'm the executive director of a faith-based preschool that has 2 campuses. We serve over 300 children in downtown Greenville.
Thank you. Sarita.
Hi, I'm Sarita Smith. I have been in childcare for 15 years. I currently in-home childcare for the past 5 years.
Thank you. Felicia? Felicia, you might be on mute.
I was, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Felicia O'Neal, and my role is in-home provider. I've been in-home provider for the past almost 5 years, and yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, Mr. D.
Hello, I'm Dellarekus Kelly, but I go by Mr.D. I've been in childcare for August will be 5 years for me. I've worked with kids since I was 16. I'm an assistant director out where I work in childcare, and I teach after school, and I help out with the K4 program that we have here.
Great, thank you. Okay, Meredith.
Hi, I'm Meredith Burton. I'm the director and lead teacher of a private preschool and kindergarten program in Greenville, and I've been in that current role for about 16 years, and before that I taught public school, kindergarten and first grade.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Maria.
Hi, I'm Maria Johnson, and I've been in childcare for over 20 years. In and out, I've taught elementary school, and I'm currently a nanny for a local family, and I live with them. And that's what I do in addition to my regular job, which is at the hospital 3 days a week, and I do this 4 days a week.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna come right back to y'all as soon as I breeze through these findings. And like we discussed before, if y'all feel moved by something, feel free to jump in, but otherwise y'all are definitely gonna have the floor once we breeze through this. So a little bit of introduction and purpose, a background just briefly on how I got interested in childcare to begin with. When I first moved to Greenville, actually, I got involved with a community project, and what the community was telling me and the task force that I was working with loud and clear was that they needed childcare to be able to get to work. So I made it my #1 priority and made it the task force's #1 priority to make sure that we got a Head Start 2 and 3K classroom into that neighborhood and community. And that was a wonderful thing. There was a wait list right away, and very quickly I got to see, kind of a lot of the way things work behind the scenes. But when my son was born, that actually added a little bit more to it, because I had a front row seat to knowing what it was like to be a parent. So I also felt it was super important for me to know the people who were spending so much time with my son. And as I built a relationship with them, they began to reveal to me some of the things that were going on. So I began to realize and understand that childcare workers are underpaid and lack access to employment benefits, which causes personal, workplace, and interpersonal stress, meaning that also ends up contributing to childcare quality issues. This is also, as I opened with, persisted for the last 5 decades at least, and disproportionately affects childcare professionals in comparison to other workforce sectors, which we'll go into a little bit more detail later. So my purpose is in starting this and going down this path with this study that all of these wonderful professionals have participated in, is to really add the childcare worker life experience perspectives to the literature, but even more importantly, to inform and inspire action on needed policy change. So very briefly, this is the sample that we were working with here. I think it's a really good, diverse group. I wish we could have had a little bit even more diversity, but I'm proud of what we were able to have and recruit, and the different perspectives from teachers and directors and different kinds of childcare environments.
Mm-hmm.
So the overview of findings really quickly, we have the outcomes of lower wages and lack of benefits. the daily components of caregiving or a typical day. The fact that this is a study that hasn't been seen in any other childcare workforce literature, which is that childcare professionals are stigmatized. We talked about reasons for turnover and between the types of caregiving or leaving the field, and what childcare professionals really want us to know. So this one is going to be pretty quickly. Pretty quick. These are the outcomes of low wages and the lack of benefits, and they're not just limited to income and benefits. So you can see here that turnover is a direct result of these outcomes. And there also is therefore also health insecurity because of the lack of benefits. A lot of childcare workers are not realizing any time off. So they're getting burnt out, right? And there's also an imbalance of expectations of the level of education that childcare professionals are expected to attain and the compensation. Centers know that their childcare workers are being paid, not as much as they need, but they have a really hard time being able to pay them more with the way the system is currently structured. And then there's some other mitigating factors that do allow childcare workers to stay in the field that we'll go over briefly in a minute. So other studies really also haven't touched on these daily components of caregiving like this one has, and that is in part due to the qualitative nature of the study, meaning that we interviewed all of these wonderful professionals right here, and we found out about the daily paid and unpaid caregiving, the planning and preparation that goes into each day's work. Which includes not only academic activities, but also teaching children life skills and values every day. And then what I think people may forget is that there are non-caregiving components of childcare workers' day. When they go home, they have to work other jobs. At least 50% of the sample reported working 2 or 3 or more jobs in order to be able to make ends meet. And then a lot of them talked about the importance of self-care, but unfortunately we're not able to always take advantage of it. So all this to say, I think one of the things that's lost on a lot of people in our society is that childcare work requires training and professionalism, and that is critical to the optimal brain development in children. So here more on stigma. Childcare professionals told me about feeling stigma in their profession because society perceives their work as less important, easy, unskilled, just babysitting. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and you'll hear it some more coming up, I hope. People also tell them they don't have real jobs and treat them as servants. So this is stigma, which also underscores the fact that they continue to be paid low wages. So the turnover, childcare workers over and over and over again have told me how much they love working with children, but that love does not pay the bills. So they are worried. 100% of the participants of this study told me that they may end up leaving because of this low wage and lack of benefits situation. They feel burnt out and they're just uncertain about the future. For example, being able to save for retirement, or if they need a new car or things like that. So it's really difficult to stay even though they love childcare. The factors increasing the likelihood to stay were spousal support, meaning that they had a husband or a wife, in some people's case, to allow them to stay in the field, meaning that they were able to cover essential bills. Some centers are able to pay better pay and benefits, although they also know it's not enough. And the better work environments made people happy. Another really just interesting fact was that the qualifications and environment of childcare really also determines the type of caregiving that they are able to give. So, I don't want to be redundant because everybody here is on the panel is an expert, and they are going to be able to tell you what they want you to know. But I can tell you that this is just a really brief overview of what they did tell me. And I really especially wanted to underscore the fact that childcare work and childcare is essential. It's essential for our society, and kindergarten readiness is workforce readiness. So just to tie up all of this with a really neat bow before we move into the recommendations, quality caregiving requires better wages, benefits, and relationships. So childcare workers need to be able to meet basic needs just like everyone else. And they also are highly trained. They have this knowledge of child development that they impart on the children and also can share with parents. They need to be able to be physically and mentally well and available in order to do this important work, which means that they also need time for self-care and with loved ones, as well as supportive work environments and respect from society. That's what they need from us to be able to do their job. And I'm going to let them talk a little bit more about this. But let me just start with talking about advocacy really quickly. So everybody has a role in making sure that childcare workers get what they need. Mm-hmm. And that looks different for different people, right? Not everybody is comfortable calling up an elected official and saying, hey, this is what we need. But there are things you can do. For example, do you and your community treat childcare workers with respect? You can send letters and emails to elected officials, organizations, other people, even your friends and family, to tell them about what childcare workers need. I can't see what that one says, but I know that it has something to do. Dellarekus or somebody is hidden right now. Anyway, y'all can see it. And that's another way that you can provide support. But most importantly, you need to be able to speak up. Everywhere you are, you have an opportunity to speak up and tell people around you why childcare is so important. And let them know that they need to treat childcare workers with respect. So we can also advocate for better policy. And again, like, tell your network what you hear tonight and what rings true for you. So turning it over to our wonderful panelists, the first thing that we're going to talk about is access to health. So here are some of the things that, based on the findings that, I gleaned and came up with the suggestions for access to health, but I want you to hear from our panelists tonight about what this means to them and why this is important. Okay, does anybody want to start?
I'm one of the few centers in the area that offers health care benefits, but I do that through the generosity of the church. I pay my teachers a competitive wage with other child care centers, but it's kept some of my teachers at my school for a long time because they provide that for their families. But the ones who have to pay for that child care benefit, health benefit, it takes about every cent they make to cover their family. So they usually are the working partner in their home that brings home the health insurance while someone else is hopefully making more money. And to put it into perspective, I have a college graduate. She just finished Clemson. She'll be a teacher, but she's working for me this summer. And if you have a college degree, you make $12 an hour.
Yeah.
And Target and McDonald's are offering Chick-fil-A $15 and then giving hiring bonuses. And so for her to work for me this summer, she's bringing home $775 every 2 weeks with a college degree.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty sad, huh?
Well, and some of you shared with me that you had actually left the field because you needed access to health care. If anybody wants to share about that. And then some of your colleagues have also shared about workforce housing and how the wages make it difficult. And workforce housing is up here because it is a social determinant of health. Does anybody want to talk more about that or the lack of paid sick leave?
I'll speak on behalf of in-home providers while they get thoughts together. For myself, I go through Marketplace. The first year, they were wanting like $200 a month. But at that time, the price that I was charging was a little more expensive than what I was able to pay. So I would just rather pay the penalty for not having insurance. Last year it did go down, and the year before that it did go down. And I can't remember how much it was, but it was very affordable. So for in-home providers, we have to find alternatives. I'm not married or anything like that, so I do have to look into other options, which I'm glad it's gone down. But yeah, it can be pretty pricey.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Dellarekus.
A pretty pricey ain't the word. Is nothing pretty about it. You know, it's ridiculous. This year I had to find a different plan because the marketplace, they wanted to charge me $400 a month. And mind you, I already had to get another job to make ends meet too. And I was telling, you know, the person from the yacht, I said $400. I said, sir, my car payment is that much a month. What makes you think that I can afford $400 in healthcare? I said, I don't even go to the doctor like that, you know? And it's crazy because, you know, a lot of childcare facilities, and, you know, I'm one of them, you know, we just can't afford, you know, to, you know, have that type of, you know, benefit. So I didn't have a choice but to seek help elsewhere. And it sucks that, you know, we work hard, we give our time, our energy, you know, some of us even come out of our pockets, you know, for classroom materials and everything, just to be penalized at the end of the year for not having healthcare. Like, that's ridiculous. And we can't afford it, but yet we are considered essential workers too. But we're not valued as essential workers because we're not nurses or doctors. You know what I mean? But if it wasn't for us, there wouldn't be no nurses or no doctors, you know. Like I feel like everybody would be sick, you know, because they gotta have some place, you know, to take their kids. You know, and without us, they couldn't go to work. But yet we suffer because we're not valued as teachers. We're not valued, you know, as being the foundation of these kids. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, like right now, I was able to find a plan that is now I pay $272 a month, and that's just for me. You know, and that's just for me. That comes out of my check, you know. So it's tough. It's tough, very tough.
And even the price that I pay, like it's still not a coverage. So I just paid $144 for 2 visits. But I mean, I got the cheapest that they have, but it doesn't cover anything. That's just to keep from having to pay the penalty. Sometimes it's better to just pay the penalty when I average stuff out. But other than that, like like I said, I paid for 2 doctor visits. That was $144, and then I needed to get like an allergist. And I said, well, I'll just pay out of pocket. How much? And she said, oh, that's going to be anywhere between $500 to $1,500. Okay.
And how does all of this work into allowing you to be able to stay in the field?
You got to figure out what, you know, I love this. I love what I do. It doesn't even feel like work. But times like this, like you got to figure out what's more important. I'm pushing this to the side to see an allergist. But I mean, you just have to weigh it out. I shouldn't have to put childcare. I mean, I shouldn't have to put insurance on my health on hold for others. But it's the nature of the game. You know, that's what we do. We chalk it up and we handle the kid. You know, deal with our daycare children the best we can, and we'll deal with ourselves later.
And what
Another
about
thing, well, I was just going to say, another thing that people don't realize is we are in contact with germ-carrying children 24. I mean, and it's so hard to stay healthy. And I think people don't realize people send their kids sick to school with a fever, and then you are loving on them because they're sick, and then you get
Right.
sick, and then you can't work and you don't get paid. It's just a snowball effect.
Well, speaking of Miss Lynn, I had the sniffles this week.
I wonder where you got that.
Loving on my wonderful children.
Yeah.
The past week, and it's funny because in home care, I can afford to pay someone to cover for me to even
What
go
do
to the
that's what I wanted to know. What do you do when you are sick? If you are a
It's-
home care like that?
It's a lose-lose situation because
Okay.
either I have to close and lose
Okay.
money, and then the parents don't have anywhere to send their children, or like now, if it's not super bad, I have to work sick.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I do get a chance to go to the doctor, I have to pay crazy money just for medicine, or just to be seen.
Yep, because you're going off hours or during on the weekends.
Right. So, and usually, you know, once you go after hours, they charge an extra fee.
Right? Because you probably can't go until after 6 o'clock.
Right.
I was gonna say, I work at a local hospital system, the 3 days that I'm not here, so I see both sides of the coins,
Yeah.
the coin. So medical providers are pretty desperate for childcare, and there's actually a daycare facility on the campus of the hospital where I work, and they basically have a monopoly because they know that the healthcare providers are going to pay for childcare and their hours. So they, you know, they're open at 6 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m. But the cost to go to that school is several thousand a month. And I feel like probably taking advantage because they know the convenience. So they have somebody, because most people work 12-hour shifts, 7 to 7. So to be able to leave your child at 6:30 a.m. and pick them up at 7:30 or 8, it's worth it to them. And they go ahead and pay. And this facility, you know, they benefit from that because they can charge. So it's unfortunate because not all healthcare workers make a ton of money. I can, you know, providers are rich. So. But
I think unfortunately that all the things that are being mentioned here is one of the reasons why we have such turnover in the field, and why it's really hard to find good employees on a consistent basis. I am fortunate that in my program, my full-time teachers do have healthcare benefits, but my part-time staff do not. And I'm trying to hire right now for a part-time staff position, and I cannot find anyone.
Right.
It is really, really a challenge. And I'm not sure what we're going to do. I mean, if we can't find someone, it's going to be a real problem. And I think that this issue is one of the biggest reasons why people just can't. I mean, some people will put up with some lower wages, but when they can't afford to go to the doctor or take their child to the doctor, or they have to worry about these issues consistently, it's not worth it to them.
And I also think the length of time it takes when you have applicants, you have to have them fingerprinted, background checked, and everything like that. And you have to wait for the state to return all the paperwork. People that are going to work for that wage need to have a paycheck coming in. They can't wait 2 to 3 weeks out to even begin work and then wait for a paycheck for another week or two. People that are looking for a job need to be employed immediately in order to start drawing a check.
I'm going to use that as a segue actually to go to the next slide about this one, the next recommendation. So y'all continue the conversation, but this is kind of getting into the next recommendation and topic. I just wanted to share, like I mentioned earlier, that the higher education and more credentialing does not necessarily mean higher compensation. And I remember Mr.D earlier said that this chart really struck a chord with him because I'm highlighting here that we're paying people who take care of our dogs and cats more than the people who take care of our children. So just let that sit with you. I have a cat. I love my cat, but still, like this is a really important point. So the policy recommendation here is that we need training opportunities and pay scales. And so I just wanted, these notes are kind of here as a background here now, but I want y'all to continue the conversation and kind of think about this and what it means to you.
So my teachers are all certified teachers, and it is very difficult to compete with the public school system because they could make a lot more money in the public school system. Thankfully, I have some great teachers, and they love what they do, where they are, but it is a big challenge because I cannot even begin to pay them what they could be making in public school. So it's a real sacrifice for those teachers to do that.
And that's the very reason I was a teacher at a local private school and did the after school care. But even then, the pay was, even though it was my passion to be there in that environment, I had to go to public school because I couldn't live off of that. I had to work and babysit and do all things at night to cover everything. And I have a Furman degree that I'm proud of. So.
I think someone mentioned earlier, for college student, I think they said $12 an hour. I know when I was working in this center, it was like $9.50. So 12 is actually good. But like in-home care, I think it's a little bit different because we actually we own our centers and we have more of a voice of our value and what we're worth. I just finished my second degree. I have one degree in psychology and another bachelor's in early childhood and family studies. And, I tell my parents, when I'm marketing and that sort of thing and what I do and what I have to offer, this is what I charge and this is what I'm worth. And I think in home care, we have more kind of a voice, whereas some teachers, they may have a voice, but it's often overlooked. And maybe not even sometimes overlooked, they just can't afford it. They can't afford to raise the pay, but they expect us to have certain credentials and even training hours every year. And a lot of times those costs come out of our pocket. We actually have to pay for those trainings each year.
And that's probably around what, $200 to $225 a year for the training classes.
And that's what really struck a nerve with me, because there is a lot of training, and we do. I mean, like in these, in these training hours are mandatory, and y'all want us to do a whole lot, but not be compensated for. It's like we're basically working for free almost, Our pay should increase, especially if this is a requirement. Then that needs to be an incentive, especially when you have people that are passionate about working with kids and seeing these kids, and wanting to see these kids succeed, and go to the next level. Then it's only fair, what I mean? Like, because all these training hours, like we all, agree, they are mandatory. We have to have these training hours. If something is always changing or something is always staying the same, it doesn't matter. If we're taking out the time to educate ourselves and get the training hours, and to make sure that our credentials are in place and intact, then we should be compensated for that, period. Our pay should go up regardless.
Well,
because we're bettering ourselves to help better these kids.
Well, I think that's the misconception. People think we get our degree in early childhood or whatever, and then we're done. They don't realize how much professional time we have to put in every single year. I don't know too many other professions that they have to put in 15 hours a year to continue this. And like at my center, they pay for your classes, but we don't get paid for that time. So that's 15 hours of my time. Usually on Saturday mornings, I have to get up at 7:30, go to be there at 8, and you're there till 3 or 4 o'clock. And you're doing that 2 or 3 times a year. And people don't realize that they're doing this to be a better teacher to their children. And they don't think that we do this. And I've been doing it now for 27 years. So you go to these classes, and some of them are wonderful. I've learned so much, and they're great. And I get so energized, and others, you're like, well, that was a big waste of my time. But anyway, and I've actually taught some of the classes before for people. And that's the hard thing. I think people don't realize that teachers are required to do that every year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, even as an assistant director, you know, I have to have more, like, I think I have to have like 20
You
or
have to have
23.
20, don't you?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, and this is yearly. And sometimes I'll go over because I really get fascinated and I really want to learn, especially when something has grabbed my attention. But that's just
Right.
me
You
because I
find a
really
good
want to see these
teacher or something.
kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really want to see these kids see, you know, and it's a great feeling to be a part of that. But again, it's me bettering myself for the sake of these kids, and something has to change, you know. I mean, it has to.
But
We are the
it's a double standard because in
Mhm.
every other profession, you know, even in like healthcare, from nurse assistants to, you know, LPN, as you move up the ladder, it shows your salary should also increase. And in childcare, it doesn't.
Right,
It does not.
right.
which is weird because we're the foundation. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're
There
setting
will
the
be no
tone.
lawyers or doctors or nurses to take
Right.
care of it if it wasn't for
Right.
us to begin with.
Y'all
Right,
better say that.
exactly. Right. And like someone said the other day, and I've always said this, who's gonna wipe our butts? If the
Mhm.
foundation is off, we're in trouble.
We are.
Because I mean, it starts with us and then it goes to the next level and it goes to the next level. And if we're not taking our job seriously, then by the time they get to a certain age to be taking care of us, you know, they're gonna be so frustrated because of lack of knowledge.
Right.
So it's like, and that's exactly what I think about when I have my kids here, you know, trying to teach them every little thing under the sun, because it's the foundation. She's going to represent me. He's going to represent me. Hopefully he can come back and help me, because I did put in my time with them, because parents don't have the time, you know, so it's like, I try to go above and beyond. I understand the centers are not able to go, you know, all the way there, but I try to do it all just so that the parents can, you know, rest at night or whatever. But it's like, you know, what everybody is doing is awesome and it helps, but we're just not getting paid enough to do that.
Mm-hmm.
My fear for us is that the proposal for universal care in the schools, 3K and 4K, for childcare centers, the ratios are so much higher with older children
Uh-huh.
that we're able to offset the cost of infant care, toddler care, because it's 1 to 5 with infants and then 1 to 6 with toddlers. For 3K and 4K, that's kind of our money makers. It's where we have our most income. And if we take that age group out, we're going to have to charge so much for infant and toddler care that we're not going to be able to pay teachers more or maintain the salary base. We're going to lose a lot of revenue if 3K and 4K goes to public school.
Allison, you keep giving me these great segues and I appreciate it. The next recommendation is based on exactly what you're talking about, which is why child care centers struggle to pay more. So this is a chart to try to help make sense of a very complicated issue about why childcare costs so much. And so for each, so we start at the left, and for each additional center cost, this costing continues to increase, and childcare centers are barely breaking even. I mean, you see like the top, that's the monthly childcare center cost. And then the bottom is the monthly tuition per child. So again, that's supposed to just be in the background, but I wanted everyone to have that. And the recommendation here, and I want y'all to continue to talk about this and then weigh in on this paid family leave recommendation. I'm also going to put this action item, you know, just in the background here, because I want to focus on what y'all have to say. But the reason for the paid family leave recommendation is that it also helps alleviate some of that cost for the youngest children. So go ahead and talk a little bit more about that.
Well, you know, like I teach K4, and we have 2 teachers with usually between 14 and 18 children. And, you know, they pay, what, $200 a week to come 5 days a week. And it's like 5, I guess they come from 9 till 1. And, but the nursery for the infants, you have, sometimes they have as many as 3 teachers, and you know, they're paying less than that. And it's like, they don't make any money off of that. So they can only have 6 kids in there, but they're paying for 3 teachers because we're an ABC program. So we have to follow the ABC, not the DSS guidelines for teachers to kids ratio. And so we make no money off of the nursery, but the K4 is our, like you just said, our money maker. And
but you also can't get your K4s if you don't have them as infants, toddlers.
Right.
Okay.
Then they don't
You have to
stay in your
start-
program.
Mhm.
I love it when we get kids that have come all the way through and I get them, and you know, I've seen them in the nursery, and we also have an early stay, which I've been doing, and it's, you know, anything to earn more money. So I do the early stay. And so sometimes there's like some kids that I've known since they were 6 weeks old. Then they come through my class in K4 and then they're 5, and I watch them. I'm thinking, oh, they are so ready for this world. And it just brings tears to my eyes to watch them go. And so if the K4 is taken from us, I don't know too many centers that'll be able to make it. Because you don't make enough money off of the infant care. And I'm like, who could leave their baby with somebody if you didn't trust them? Who could leave a 6 month or a 6 week old with somebody you don't know or you don't trust?
We have 32 infant spots at one campus and 16 infant spots that open up every year. After the pandemic, we took in 32 new children downtown, 16 new children at our other campus. We have 34 on the wait list on the downtown campus and 20 on the wait list at the other campus. There's no infant care out. It's drying up. It's becoming a desert because people can't find it. And that's because care centers are closing because of the cost, and they can't find workers. They cannot keep and maintain workers.
Right.
Piggybacking off of what you just said, Miss Allison. My director decided to go ahead and get rid of the infant program that we had here, simply because staff were complaining. You know, me, I'm a lot younger, so I mean, I could take a baby crying or babies crying. It doesn't wreck my nerves. You know, it doesn't. They're babies. You know, and that's the point. And you know, and that's the point. And I meant to tell everybody, they're babies. They're gonna cry. But if you need help, you know, that's all you have to say. So my director got tired of the complaint and everything, and she just cut it out completely. And literally for the past 3 or 4 months, every day I have turned away several infants. I've got to tell them we don't carry that program anymore. I mean, and it sucks because these parents are really trying to get back to work. You know, they're trying to get back on their feet, but like you said, we can't find good, reliable people that will deal with the infants, you know, that will help nurture them and teach them and all that good stuff. You know, it's sad.
And my center is tailored around 6 weeks to 2 years old because of that shortage.
Okay.
And parents really appreciate that. And I can only take 4 because I have to include my 2 children within my 6, and I have 6 babies on the waiting list now. But infants require a lot more attention and a lot more work. And some people, if you know, if they're not passionate about it and you're not paying them enough, you know, they're don't put me in the infant room. You'll hear a lot of them say that. Don't put me, because it requires a lot.
And yet people who take care of infants are often also paid less than the people who take care of the older.
Yes.
kids.
4K.
Right.
And I don't know why that is. Why is that?
I can tell you, I'd love to hear from y'all. Why do y'all?
I think because you tend to think the 3K and 4K are teachers. So you look for people that are
Teachers.
identified as teachers, and infant care, you just think of caregivers, and you just kind of have a different label.
All right. Okay. I've never been in an infant room, so I've always taught older children, always. So that's kind of curious. Now, our center, we did away with the nursery during the pandemic, but we're going to start them back. We're also downtown, so we are going to start back in September and have an infant room. So we're actually looking forward to, because I missed seeing those babies. So if you have a long waiting list, Allison, you can send them to us, okay?
Okay.
If you have 32 on a downtown waiting list, we're downtown, we're by the Poinsett Club. So we can take some of those.
We're full-time year-round, and I was going to go back to another point I want to make is if our teachers we don't close for the weeks of Christmas or spring break or have that. They have vacation time and sick time. But if you work a standard 40-hour week, 8-hour day, there's no flexibility in childcare to have an appointment, to run late for a lunch appointment, go to the dentist, or come in early, leave early. There's no flexibility in that day. You have a structured set time frame. So those teachers are really struggling to get all of their personal, even to run to the DMV or to drop off something at the tax office. You can't do that and work a childcare job.
Alison, you did it again. This is awesome.
Way to go, Alison.
She's on it. So this is just, again, these suggestions about current legislation, and what will help is, again, like background, because the focus is on what y'all are saying and what y'all have told me. But, I just wanted the people who are interested in those particular policies to be able to see that. But the reducing administrative tasks, the free or reduced tuition for childcare employees, the improvement of work environments, like you were just referring to perfectly well and starting us out on that, Alison. And then just, the cost and everything that we've been talking about goes to this last point of we really need to overhaul and restructure the system. So please keep talking about the work environments and, what helps you retain people and kind of what is difficult and what you need help with.
When you say administrative task, I think of when I hire a new employee and I have to turn in their fingerprints, their background checks, and their paperwork, and then you have to actually send that into the state. And I just had an employee just for example, I sent her, there's a criminal background questionnaire. She completes it, has to be in blue ink, and I don't understand that because you're going to fax it or scan it to them. You send it to them, and then they'll send back for corrections. I had her sent back 4 days for 4 different corrections. It took a week to get her background questionnaire submitted, where had it been completely reviewed at the state level, I could have corrected that with one turn. It would have taken 1 day versus 4. And I'm sure they're swamped. I'm sure there's a lot of, but it's frustrating to try to get somebody to work and you can't even get the paperwork turnaround.
And they can go to Chick-fil-A and get hired and start 2 days later.
Yes.
And make $5 more an hour than you could have begin to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get a $200 signing bonus to go work for them now. So it's hard. I'd agree.
Free chicken.
You better like chicken. Kids are so much more fun than Chick-fil-A. They say the darndest things. They're just so cute. I had one day, this one kid was sitting there and he was sitting with another kid who was eating SpaghettiOs and had SpaghettiOs all over his face. And the other kid looked at him, just a serious face. He goes, "You're not going to eat like that when you go to college, are you?" No. I mean, they say stuff right off their hat. And it just, I could write a book. It's just every day somebody says something that makes you just, a belly laugh. What other job where you can laugh like that?
Right.
They and then you're doing a song and all of a sudden one day, some days you do a song and they're all looking at you like, "You want me to do that?" Other days they're like, "This is the best day ever, Miss Lynn." And you're like, "Oh, thank you. But there's days where you are about ready to pull your fingernails out because you think that's going to be less painful. So
right.
Everybody's been there.
Yes, definitely.
But one thing on here is, I think I talked about it because my center is one that the reason why I started working there, I had 1 child in school and 3 young ones at home, and I needed a part-time job. And she let me bring my kids there and they got to go free. And to this day, our director will still do that. And most of the people who whose kids who've come through are still there. And like I said, I started 27 years ago. My baby, when I was pregnant with him when I started, he just got engaged over the weekend. So I really feel old because I was pregnant with him when I started working. And that's why I chose childcare, because I had small kids and it was a perfect job for me. And because I needed money, but I had a husband, and so I just needed a little bit of an income, so it worked out nicely. So if they could come up with a way that centers could either give a lot cheaper for their own children, and I think you'll get teachers that would stay after their kids graduated because they would be very appreciative of it, or do it kind of like they do West Point. Your child can come here and then you work for 2 more years for me.
That sounds good.
Something like that. Because some centers saying, well, it's hard to pay for that, but because you're taking away a paying spot. But if you look in the long run, if you could keep a teacher 3 to 5 years longer than you normally would have, you come out in the long run. I think in every one of our classrooms, we have at least 2 teachers whose kids have come through our program. And I have 3 in my classroom this summer that are teachers' kids. So we have 11 and 3 of them are teachers' kids. So they're not paying, but in the long run, they're good teachers. And we know it's better to keep the teachers and be able to make it through, because they'll all start kindergarten, and then those teachers are free, so our director goes, it's a little tough though sometimes, but in the long run, it works out if people will look at it that way.
I would say that we need the teachers, but we also need the families. And I think just to highlight some of this legislation for just a minute, it's critically important that in order to keep the childcare system, we have to be able to provide ways for families to afford it also. And so like providing free or reduced tuition for childcare employees. But I think that the pandemic really highlighted the need for childcare. But the federal childcare relief that was provided during this emergency is not enough. Like major challenges that existed before are going to continue to exist without some significant sustained investment in childcare and preschool from Congress and from the state of South Carolina. And these investments are needed to really ensure that families have options for safe, high quality childcare. Families' economic security and their children's long-term success can be dependent upon whether or not they can find a place to send their children. And they're also integral pillars that are supporting our economy. So I really feel like now is the time, and you can see from the number of legislative bills that are coming through, that this is now on the horizon, and it's in people's minds, and people are thinking about it. But we really have to address the childcare crisis once and for all, and we need significant investment in our early childhood system to ensure that every family who needs it can access care and options that work for them, and that every provider can stay in the field and continue to grow as professionals. And really, we can't do that without some serious help.
Let me piggyback off of your comment. I had the honor, and I say it's an honor. When I first started, I think it was 2015. No, 2012. I think it was 2012. The man was nice enough he gave me the keys to his building. It was a daycare. It was 7,500 square feet. And he didn't charge me anything. And I say that because back then, to rent out a building was $15,000 a month. So I kind of know both ends. When that's just the building. Keep in mind, you got to have insurance. Keep in mind the lights. I didn't even use the lights, and it was $800 a month. I even went as far as turning the breaker off. It was still $800 a month. So I had to keep up here and there, and I didn't even have any kids. And I had that building for a whole year. I can only imagine, and 15,000 was on the low end just to rent. So I think, the funding that's been coming through is awesome. But when we look at the whole thing, and it's not to downplay anything, because we still need the money, but just to give a light on, when she was talking about the parents, it's only so much they can pay. Everything else is going up. Then childcare is going up. But this is where all this is coming from. These people know everybody's going to need childcare. I think I heard a couple of years ago, somebody was paying 20 grand a month just to rent a daycare. So I think that it comes into play where, yes, funding is definitely needed to help out these parents with these fees. Not to mention, you have to still, with the requirements of having that center, you got to keep it up. There shouldn't be any paint chippings. There's so many things that requires in order to keep that place going. And so funding is definitely needed so that our staff can get paid more. It will relieve our parents, especially with the economy going up like it is. I can only imagine what the rent is now. I don't even want to think about it. Like I said, 15 grand was on the short end back in 2012. And no, I did not get that center. But thankfully, he just let me have it for a year. And that's how I was able to get all the things that I have, because everything that I have here is what I had in my center. But yeah, it's expensive. It's expensive all the way around. Just to give a background on why daycare is the price that it is in a lot of places. And then if your place is in the downtown, good God, it's ridiculous. It's needed, if nothing else, to help offset with the staff, to help offset with the parents. There's parents that are just now able to get vouchers. And I was so excited for those parents because you can hear the relief. I haven't been able to, they'll say, like, I haven't been able to meet the criteria, and now I meet the criteria. Can I get daycare? And that is like that's beautiful. I even brought this up on a paper because I'm going to school for early childcare. Just to be able to help the parents. Because we can't stop everything from going up, but sheesh, it's gotta be relief.
I'm reading the questions in the chat, and one of them is about the potential loss of income because of universal 4K. It will definitely affect infant care. The centers will not be able to survive if we lose 3K and 4K without charging so much for infant and toddler care just based on ratios. And that's staying within state guidelines. So yes, it will definitely cause there to be a loss of infant care.
Unless there's a commensurate makeup for some of that income in another way.
Yes.
I know with like the emergency funding that the government has been rolling out for to pay teachers more and to help the centers upkeep costs and stuff has helped a lot. And I know it definitely has helped parents. I have actually seen more parents trying to actually get their child into childcare and to return back to work more because of being able to have that assistance from the government. And I'm like, wow, it's always, in the past, it's been an excuse, we don't have funding for childcare. No, we have it. It just has not been allocated for childcare. We don't see childcare as of importance as we do other fields, and it's important. And like she was saying, the upkeep, I know like in-home childcare, what we bring in is basically solely off of what the parents pay. And we have to pay ourselves liability insurance, the upkeep of running our homes, lights, and all that, basically 24 hours a day, because we have children all day and then we live here all day. Food, materials, those sort of things. They really, it costs a lot. And when you're talking about taking all of those costs out of only what we get from parent tuition, I barely make anything. I know without my husband's support, I wouldn't be able to provide childcare and do what I really love. And he supports me because this is what I really enjoy doing.
That's good.
But I do worry sometimes with what would happen if something happened to my husband. I would not be able to stay in childcare and support my family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, a lot of the provisions in these in this legislation does support childcare providers as well. But I also know that if it's helping families, then that's also supporting the childcare industry.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right.
call your Congress people.
There you go. Very well said.
Yes, and that goes back to that advocacy that I was talking about before we started with the recommendations. Like, everybody's got a different role to play, you know. Contacting your elected officials is super important, but we can also tell our friends and you know, organizations, and you know, help other people really understand why this is so important, which is an excellent segue to the next slide, which is that our children and families and society as a whole would really benefit from a campaign to really help people understand, like, we need to rebrand childcare professionals as teachers so that people see them the way that they should be seen, to be honest, and also refer to caregivers or centers as childcare. And I hear a lot of people refer to it as like daycare or something like that, but that isn't really fully, I don't think, express the level of professionalism and training that y'all bring to work every day, like a childcare you know, label might. And then again, helping others understand the role of childcare in our daily lives. I mean, y'all allow other people to be able to get to work, and you also have to think about your own children as well, and like, who's going to take care of your babies. And you know, and I want Sarita, for example, you know, to talk a little bit more about that too, because she made the decision she did to help take care of her own children the way that they needed to be taken care of. And so we just need to improve the way that childcare professionals are seen. And I think that is one of the ways that we can really move the needle. But I want, again, like I was mentioning Sarita earlier, I want you to talk a little bit more about that, please.
I did make the decision to stay home with my children because I felt like they weren't getting the quality care that they deserve. And I feel like, as I can kind of speak from all perspectives, as a parent, as a teacher, as an owner, as a director, I kind of get the full spin of everything. So I know they weren't getting the attention and quality care that they deserve, but I do feel like if we were pouring more into our teachers, pay time, leave off would be great. Sick leave would be awesome. Just, you know, even being able to afford a substitute pool where childcare workers have the ability to take off. Because I know when I was in the center, I had time, but I couldn't take it off because they couldn't afford for me to take it off because they couldn't pay anyone else to come fill in for me. So, and then it brings work overload. Like even now in-home childcare, I'm able to set more time out through the year for vacation, those sort of things. But in return, because I know my parents can't afford it, I don't charge my parents for when I take vacation. So it's like I'm looking out for the parents, but then on the financial side, I'm almost, you know, I'm still losing. But I need that rest, and I know, you know, what it takes to to, you know, to stay energized and to give children that quality care, childcare providers need rest.
Yes.
It takes a lot, and a lot goes into not just what we do during the day. I'm doing taxes, I'm doing lesson plans, I'm prepping food for the next day. And you know, and in home care, we're a one-man show. So, you know, I need rest. So I'm willing to give up pay to say, okay, I need this vacation time. We have the week of Christmas off. My parents don't pay me for Christmas, and they also have 2 weeks of sick leave that they also can take during the year, whether it's sick or whether they want to use it for vacation, but they don't pay me. So that's 4 weeks that I don't get paid for out of a year.
Mhm.
Mm.
Does
How do you do
anybody
it?
else? Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about her. I thought, how does she do it? It just hurt my brain to think about how does she do all that, and I'm in it. So
I was gonna say something that she said that really resonated with me is the self-care in every profession, but specifically with children. You do need that time to get away. And I didn't really realize that until I actually lived with a family with 3 kids. That self-care in every way is important for you to be, you know, sometimes I'm like, this isn't fair to them because I'm tired. So it's really not fair to them. You know, I have to back up and think, this is my problem, not theirs. You know, I'm just self-care in every way is important to be not just a child care provider, but just to be a healthy human being and to feel good about yourself and to be the best person that you can be. So self-care is important and vacations are important. And that's something I think is lacking in the child care.
Mm-hmm. And Maria, before we got started, you mentioned wanting to say something about stigma, and I think this is a perfect place to bring that up.
So I work at the hospital as a Spanish medical interpreter, and I want to really, my goal is to teach children. And so I decided the best way to do that financially is to move to a different country. So I'm planning to teach English to little kids in a foreign country, South Korea or Japan, I'm not sure. So anyway, I decided that I would sell everything and I was going to move abroad. Well, and then the pandemic came. And so I did not get to leave and I was homeless basically. So I moved in with a nurse anesthetist and her family. So it was kind of a win-win to help her with the kids and to help me have a place to stay. But I caught a lot of grief at the hospital, you know, my other job. It's like, what are you doing? You know, you're a nanny, you know, and it was a lot of, I still do get that whole stigma of, you know, you have a college degree, you have a professional, you know, you're professional at the hospital and you're doing this. And I'm like, this is the most challenging job I've ever had. It's the most rewarding job I've ever had. And like, to be responsible for somebody's children, there's no greater honor. There's no, you know, when somebody leaves you with their kids, like that is the ultimate. I mean, that's just like a surgeon, you know, taking care of somebody on the operating table. I mean, it's a huge responsibility. So I'm proud of what I do. I'm not ashamed of it. And I'm always ready to let people know that this is a huge responsibility and it's something that I definitely take pride in.
great, good way to say that, because you got to be able to trust who you leave your kids with. Do you want to leave them with a professional who knows what they're doing and knows how to deal with children? And even on a bad day, we're probably better than a lot of people with kids. And I don't know if we ever gain that respect.
And I do know from the medical side that there are doctors that literally say, you know, their childcare provider sees their child more awake than they do. I mean, you know, so we're helping raise children. It's not just
We are.
drop off. You know, we're an integral part of that, of their being raised. I mean, when you go to work and you drop a kid off at 7 and then you pick them up and they go to bed at 8. And I mean, it's, you know, you are with them awake probably more during the week than their own parents.
Right. I think a lot of our quality teachers are leaving the field, a lot of our experienced teachers and teachers with passion, because sometimes no matter how much we love what we do, basic needs and real circumstances arise, and sometimes that overweighs our passion because we still have to be able to take care of our families. So, and you have to be able to pay quality teachers and teachers that are passionate about what they do to try and get them to stay, or offer them incentives such as benefits, where they're able to do what they love and also receive incentives for what they do.
Mhm. Anybody else want to add anything to this?
I would just say that the rebranding is incredibly important right now, and I think we're in a prime time again because the profession has been elevated to the forefront through the pandemic. But the National Association for the Education of Young Children has been doing some work for the last several years on developing some language around the profession and professionalism. And so it's called Power to the Profession, and it's to define the early childhood education profession. And if you're interested in finding out more about that, you can always go to naeyc.org and look up Power to the Profession. But that is exactly what they're trying to do, is to elevate the profession and help to garner some respect for the field and the people working in the field at all levels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just to re-highlight, do y'all think your parents know the work that you do every day?
Yes. My parent
Yes.
just told me yesterday, and her child just started last week. And her main concern was when she first started, she wanted her daughter to be able to talk more. She's 17 months. And so just yesterday, she told me that her child is, she could tell that her daughter likes it here. She's talking more. She was singing the cleanup song yesterday. So she talked about how, just the growth that she has, which a lot of my parents do talk about that. So I think, yeah, a lot of them, they notice it. So in my case, I say, yeah.
I think that the whole pandemic was a great eye opener for parents to see how much work goes into taking care of their kids all day when they had them at home. I know a lot of my friends with kids were just, they couldn't survive. They felt like they just couldn't handle it all day. And I'm like, but this is, the people that take care of your kids all day, this is what they're doing every day,
Right.
in front of screens.
Well, or just teaching I think a lot of people realize, oh, there's more to teaching a child than saying, here, read this book and you're going to learn it.
Plus, when you have 10 in the room, it's like,
right. It's an art to it.
Oh, there is an art. Very well
you
said. I
can't
love that. There's an art to teaching children. I love that.
You can't just say, hey, no, you have to be in. I can get the group that I decided to teach is from 1 to 4. And when you have a mixture of when you have mixture ages, it's kind of hard. But we can sit for and it's not even sitting. I do the ultimate no. So 1 minute we're sitting down, next minute we're moving around. Then we're sitting down, then we're moving around. And when we don't have class, they'll still come in here to sit down because they want to have class. But again, it's an art to it. You can't just, okay, guys, if your attitude is not right, it doesn't work. If you're not entertaining, sometimes when we're doing our numbers, I'll say 1 and then 2, and they love that. So you got to know what you're doing if you're going to do this.
Absolutely.
And if you don't light their fire now, you won't catch up. They won't catch up. You got to light them now.
Yeah.
And it's
we are lighting their little booster rocket so that they can blast off to go to kindergarten, and people don't realize that.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
And it takes time and preparation. It's nothing that you can just throw together.
Right. I don't like flying by the seat of my pants in a classroom. Oh my goodness. I almost every minute is planned.
Right. You have to, because that one little second, you've lost
Huh.
them.
Oh
You've
yeah,
lost them.
they're gone.
Yep.
And all it takes is one. That one will
Yep.
set the tone for everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mr. D, you look like you wanted to say something else.
Yes, I did. I think a lot of parents too are starting to realize how much time and energy it takes to actually teach a child structure. They starting to see now, okay, well, I wasn't doing this at home, and you could get them to respond in a way that they don't respond to me. Well, why is that? Because you have to be firm, you have to follow through with everything. Like you can't be, I'm not gonna use that word. You can't sugarcoat, like you can't half it with the kid. You know, you have to follow through with everything, because if not, then they're still gonna think that it's okay to do what they want to do. And I also think parents too are starting to realize now that it takes a village to raise a child. And I'm making a point to tell anybody, it's not about me, it's not about you. It's about us coming together for the sake of this child. You know, because when they do go off to public school, they're gonna have to know how to behave, how to listen, when to sit, when to learn. It's a time to laugh and play, but there's also a time to sit down and get your education in your lesson. You know, parents are starting to see that now, that having your child, you know, in childcare, you know, is very important. And I know at the center, at my center, you know, we teach our kids how to read, you know, and I've taught several kids how to read. And I'll make it a point to tell my parents, because I have had those, well, I want them doing that and them doing this. Well, first things first, can they identify the alphabet? Yeah, they can say it, but it's not what I'm asking you. Can they identify the alphabet? If they can't identify the alphabet, then I can't show them how to read. Like, that's backwards. I'm not gonna do that. You know, I'm not gonna set that child up for failure. So I think parents are starting to see and realize that having them here, you know, is very important, especially when they're placed in a center where teachers actually care. Although we underpaid, although we got our own issues, you know, going on, you know, outside of what we do, but you know, they starting to become a little bit more educated now, you know. So, and that's just one of the biggest things. Parents have to be educated along the way, because you do have some that really want to put their children, you know, in childcare, but they scared because they don't know what to expect. And we as childcare workers, you know, and professionals, we have a bad rep. We do, because of things that people have seen on TV or read online, reviews and things like that. So yeah, it's a lot that plays into it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think this all underscores, even though it sounds like the parents, y'all are telling me the parents have a little bit more understanding through the pandemic, shining a light on that. I still think we have a little bit of work to do, and people need to be, you know, telling the network about the importance of what y'all do, and, you know, why that also should translate to some access to benefits, you know, healthcare and better wages. And so now I really want to make sure that we have time for some of our audience members to ask some questions of our esteemed panelists. Now, Courtney, do you have one teed up for us?
Sure, I can be the voice in the sky that will read some questions.
Yay!
Okay, what supports are needed to encourage family childcare providers, especially in childcare deserts? And that is from Sally.
Family childcare. That's me and Miss Felicia, I think. Far as family childcare, I would say like the funding and things, the supports that we have been getting through COVID, like the emergency grants, and I know they were talking about the American Rescue Plans. Like that funding has really, like, you don't know how much it has helped, because I know like a lot of family providers had to close down. Like I said, we're capped off at 6. So you're already capped off at a certain income. We can only have 6 children. And like in my case, 4. And I promise you, I was like, I'm not sure, because, you know, when COVID happened, your numbers can jump, you know, drastically. It went from having 6 to having 1. And that one child was part-time because, you know, parents were out of work and they couldn't afford to pay childcare. But I also had some essential workers that needed to work. And I had to say, I was like, how am I going to do this? And when the emergency funding started rolling in, I'm like, okay, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the more as it roll out every few months or so, it has really helped me, stay afloat. It has been a tremendous help. So I would say just more funding like that coming in, every few months or so would be great, even twice a year, something that we can count on, as well as health benefits will also be a great help. I know a lot of most in-home providers, like saying earlier, we have to pay for personal insurance out of the pocket, and that as well comes out of that same income.
Okay, we have another question about burnout. Do you all experience burnout because of your work?
Yes.
Not from
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't even have any children. I don't know how people do it, and they have children. I really commend them, because at the end of the day, I'm done. I've checked out. So I don't know. You've got some super parents on here, because you have to now switch over to mom. It's a lot, but I mean, we as childcare providers, you have to give 100% of yourself. So, but yeah, I have experienced burnout, definitely. And like I said, it's just me. Yeah.
I think all teachers do. It's just the nature of the beast. Some days you just give and give, and then the kids either don't respond to you, or a parent will say something. I don't know. And then you go home, you're like, I'm never going back there again.
Well,
But
in my
you
case,
get up and you do it again.
You do it again.
in my
And
case,
that's
I
the
am home.
day. That's the day the kid will come in and give you the biggest hug and say,
Hugging kids.
"You're the best teacher I've ever had in the whole wide world." And you're like, "Oh, thank you." So it's a trade-off. But I think the burnout is in any job. It's just tough. But with early childcare, I just think kids, you're giving so much to them. Every ounce of your being to them, the whole time they're there. You have to be on all the time. And that's the difficult part.
I know the difference with opening my family childcare the first year and my last couple of years. My first year, I didn't take any vacation time. I worked, straight through, even most, major holidays. And I was like, whoa, the difference from now and then is totally different, because, you're tired. So of course you're getting more frustrated. Of course, you're not taking care of your body well, so you're feeling down. You don't have the energy, and the field requires a lot of patience. And now I try to set that time, and where I can just, take a mental, emotional, and social break from it all, and it helps me revamp and get ready for, okay, all right, that was my reset, okay, and I'm good to go, because I know what it's going to require for the entire year. So like they were mentioning earlier with the burnout, I think having, vacation time, paid vacation time, and it be affordable, you're able to financially take vacation.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything to add, or should Courtney bring in another question?
What helped? Like I said, I'm done at 5. But when I piggybacking off of Sarita, like when I first started my in-home, I did everything. I cleaned. I cleaned up after the kids. I put the chairs in. I whatever it was that they were doing, I put it up. And then it was like, and then as soon as the kids would leave, I would go to bed, literally at 6 o'clock, because at that time I closed at 6. And it was like something just clicked, and it was like, start getting these kids to do some stuff. So when I started delegating stuff for them to do, it turned into the best thing ever. And I watched confidence, their confidence went through the roof. And, can you give me that book? Can you help me clean up? Can you do? And it was just the best. When I say the best, so it helped out a lot with my burnout, just delegating. And like Sarita said, yeah, you need to take holidays off. Yeah, you need to, because sometimes you can't be, when you're running a business, you can't be available for everything because we're not machines. So yeah, taking that time off. I do my time off at the end of the year, every year, and I get the parents to pay for 1 week, and I'll eat the cost on the other. But I think what I'm gonna do is add another vacation week, because it's a lot on a family provider, because we're everything. We're the janitor, we're the cook, we're the, you know what I'm saying? We got so many irons in the fire. Yeah, I think more time needs to be delegated, because without me, there is no business. So I definitely, self-care is so important. I'm so glad we keep talking about that. Thanks.
Felicia, can you imagine have young children and going to school?
No. You're
You're my hero, Sarita.
Yes, literally. Ever since I've known her, like, she's been in school and she graduated. Yes,
Oh
she is my hero. I'm going
Way
for
to go, girl. You just keep going. You're awesome.
Did you say she graduated?
twice.
Oh, wait, Sarita, you're done now?
I just finished MA with honors. Yeah.
Oh,
Yay!
I have a 6 and a 2-year-old.
Congratulations.
congratulations.
So proud of you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any more questions from the audience?
Oh, I'll graduate next year.
Woo!
All right. You go, girl.
Stay in there. Hang in there.
Yeah. I'm going for my associate.
Excellent. So I can't open the chat, but I see there's a number going up of things in it. So
It's all congratulations for the graduates.
oh, yay!
Graduates.
And somebody said a great panel. They enjoyed it. So that was good.
Oh, yay. Thank you. Great. It's thanks to y'all. Well, if there aren't any more questions, then I can go ahead to close up. And I just really want to thank all of you for taking the time. Those of you who are here to hear from our childcare workers, our childcare professionals here, and to all of our panelists and professionals who were willing to give us their time tonight and share their expertise and their hearts and their stories, and for all of the work that y'all do. I think everybody here should be extremely thankful, and I know that I am.
Well, we're thankful for you, Amanda, for what you
We
did.
are.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Amanda.
Yes.
Amanda,
Thank
you're
you.
awesome.
Thank
you for elevating this conversation.
Right.
you.
Yes,
You get you
definitely.
started, girl.
Yes.
Thank you. And
Yes.
thank you
I always say that sometimes stuff have to happen. It may seem, bad, but sometimes what had to happen in your case, Amanda, look what you did. You didn't, you ended up losing 2 good daycare workers, but look what you're doing. Like, you pretty much starting a movement. You go, girl.
Right.
Yay,
You
Amanda.
really, you put your time into something, hey, this is
A lot of
amazing.
energy. Time and
Yeah.
energy she put in.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Well, we've all got to
Definitely.
keep working together, and everybody who's participating in this call, please take this as a call to action. We have to work together to improve this situation. Let's keep moving forward together, because that's the way that we're going to show our child care professionals how much we love and appreciate them and get them what they need. So I want to do that. I don't know, Courtney, if you have any final words.
Just a quick thank you to all the panelists, and especially all the folks who came here today to hear about what they had to say. You can find some more information about Dr. McDougald Scott's work, as well as a recording of this panel on scren.org. So that's scwren.org within the next 24 hours. Thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Well,
Thank
good
you.
night.
Good night. Thank you. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.